flag is the most kind of one of the most powerful sets of imagery I think you can probably get. The piece of work I made for this exhibition and through the residency is based on a piece of writing I made probably about 3 months ago, called The Flagmaker. And he's a man that is quite a simple character. It's, as the name suggests, he makes flags. But as I've kind of worked through this piece of work, it has become apparent that it's not necessarily the literal making of the flag this character's become obsessed with. It's more the construction of ideals and where he constructs his ideas from. So at the end of the installation, after you've walked through the corridors, you come across his half-dwelling, half kind of just office space, if you like, where I see it as more of a place for thinking, as a place for literally creating. What's kind of become apparent about this chap, the more I've kind of worked on it, as the name suggests, he does make flags, but it's turned out that he kind of makes them more in his mind, maybe, and is more kind of interpretive of a kind of way of thinking as opposed to a literal flag making factory or something. And the kind of way I've really constructed that was over the 5 weeks I've had in the space. I didn't really start off with any solid plans. I knew the kind of general shape I wanted to create, and wanted to create a sense of going underground to this guy's sort of lair, if you like, his office, his kind of headspace. So you travel up all the way around to just before you get to his space, and then suddenly you're kind of presented with a corridor or a set of stairs that takes you down, where there's no kind of natural light. It's all kind of constructed, and I think it's more of an abstract space in terms of who the character is, whereas before a lot of the work I've made has been simply just quite illustrative of the story itself, and a bit more literal, even though those literal ideas are quite way out there and a bit confusing sometimes. It's a bit more like a series of memories, like a series of photographs. So as you're stood at the end of each corridor before you go down it, it's possibly looks like something out of some kind of Lynch film or something, just quite atmospheric, and something that you've probably seen before somewhere, or you think you've seen before, but you haven't, obviously, because it's completely constructed. Once you've kind of experienced the installation work, you can kind of relate the work to the smaller kind of sculptural pieces, for example, like the ant farm in this show. It kind of talks about this kind of underground societies and very complex relationships between these kind of creatures, and then the installation work is basically the same thing, but with the absence of the characters. So when the audience walks around, they kind of fill in the gaps, if you like, and kind of become part of the narrative. The flag, I mean, it's not really strictly a flag. It's kind of half painting, half kind of wall sculpture. The relationship between the object on the wall and the kind of confined space within the globe and the kind of confined dwelling at the end of the corridors. I think, well, if you think of the rug as a rug and think where it's come from, and then see where it has been painted on the reverse side, the side that one wouldn't normally see, the side that's kind of facing down, it is almost as if the guy or the chap downstairs has literally ran out of things to work on and gone, put it on the wall, and kind of out of necessity to create these designs and create these kind of ideals, and kind of project his thoughts into this kind of flag shape is very similar to that of the ants, of kind of confine them in their own little world, and all they've got in there is literally the sand, but they seem to be happy enough, and they seem to be kind of working with what they have. They've just accepted their surroundings and done what they'd normally do. So with a flag maker that's stuck underground, he's kind of, and with the piece of writing, if you read it, you can see he's kind of accepted his fate as a flag maker, even though he's got no tools for his trade, and there's no flags left to create for countries because they all have them. It's quite tragic in a way, but I think he is satisfied in himself to do that, and I think the wall piece, for me, it kind of works in that way. It's quite a satisfying piece. Well, I've felt, like, through making it, I found it quite satisfying, if you see what I mean. Whilst it's obviously not the greatest painting in the world, it's not. It's a bit slightly dodgy, but in terms of the relationship between the kind of three pieces of work, I think they really they come together quite nicely, and they operate how I'd like them to.